Hi, I'm Nathan Harper. I'm the preserve archaeologist here at the Springs Preserve. And we're going to take a quick walk today and show you a few exciting features and places here at the Springs Preserve where you can learn a little bit about the history of Las Vegas and the Valley. Behind me here, we have our spring mound, which is part of the Big Springs or the Las Vegas Springs complex. Rather than forming a pool and flowing out into the Las Vegas creeks, what would happen here is the ground would get soaked, dust would blow in and would gather over time, raising to the height of that artesian pressure. There's about 40 or 50 of these spring mounds throughout the Las Vegas Valley, and anytime they've done excavations or dug into these mounds, they found things like mammoth, bison, camel, and other prehistoric animals like that. We're working right now to do some excavation work and some research on the spring mound here. We've surveyed the top of the spring mound. We found some of the oldest artifacts at the Springs Preserve from the top of our spring mound here. And we're working to do some remote sensing and some scans below the surface so we can get an idea where we want to do excavations in the future. So when you're talking about the Springs Preserve being the birthplace of Las Vegas, this spring mound is one of those prehistoric places that you can come visit here on the trails. I'm excited to show you some other things here at the Springs Preserve on the trails today, and we're going to check out some other things right now. Come on. Just a short walk from our spring mound here on our trails, we have another historic area that we call the Dugout. This is an archaeological area that's been investigated since the 1970s. When we returned to this area in 2008, we did some more excavations and research and identified mud brick and cottonwood beams that consisted of a habitation structure that was dug into the banks of the creek with a roof over the top and mud bricks as the front wall. We found lots of interesting artifacts here, including brown glass, crockery, and lots of shell casings from cowboy six-shooters and shotguns. One of those shell casings was able to tell us that this area was occupied probably for about 10 years between 1870 and 1880. When we use our skills as historians to investigate the historical record, we can go back and look at the land records and identify that this was owned by a man named John Howell. John Howell was of mixed race from North Carolina and was one of the first landowners in this area. He operated this area as a ranch for several years before moving on out to Spring Mountain Ranch State Park. The Dugout is just one of the few historical sites we have here at the Springs Preserve. Let's go see some others. Not far from the Dugout is one of our newer trail segments. This trail segment goes through Reservoir No. 1, which is the first reservoir built by the Water District in 1929. And walking through it, it gives you an idea of how large this 3 million gallon reservoir is. It used to be covered by a superstructure of a redwood dome, and behind it, we see the Clark Street pump station, and this was the main pump station that sent water from the Springs Preserve to downtown Las Vegas, providing water to the town of Las Vegas in its earliest days. If you follow this trail through Reservoir No. 1, you'll come to Cottonwood Grove, one of our nicest areas here at the Springs Preserve. It really gives you an idea of what early life would have been like here in Las Vegas. Many townspeople would come out to the Springs to escape the heat and dust of the city and the town. They would camp out and put tents along the sides of the creek underneath the cottonwoods. You can experience some of that too when you come to visit us at Cottonwood Grove, our picnic area. You can gaze out onto the ponds and see the frogs and the fish that we've stocked them with. We're excited to safely welcome you back to our trails here at the Springs Preserve.